Welcome to Eye on the Illini Live. This is Mike Cagley. I'm here with Steve Sturm. We're going to spend a few minutes tonight, not a super long podcast, which unfortunately we've been wont to do. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Portal Combat and some of the wins the Illini have. It's obviously, Steve, this is something that fans have to be patient on because with over 3,000 players in the portal, I'm not even certain if opposing coaches who are looking for players have an idea of everybody who's in there.
Yep. Oh, isn't it crazy? And then, of course, you got the tampering ones, too. I don't believe for a second that Kurt Neal all of a sudden decided, hey, I think I'll get in the portal tomorrow. And all of a sudden I'm at Purdue. So, you can think you got some guys squared away and you're building around that. I'm not saying that Kurt Neal's somebody you build around, but I think that they definitely wanted him back.
Yeah.
And you think you got all the pieces in place, and then boom, he's gone. And I was thinking about this the other day, Mike. Imagine being at the bottom of the food chain in this environment, right? Imagine you're an SIU and you're counting on your quarterback, and all your wide receivers you've recruited are based on this quarterback. And then all of a sudden, Illinois, and this is a legitimate possibility, Illinois needs a backup, and we need an experienced backup. And we search around, we call up SIU's quarterback on the last day of the portal's open. We call him up and say, hey, $200,000 to come here, be a Power 4 player, and have an opportunity to start in a couple of years. And he's gone. What is SIU supposed to do at the last second when they're kind of already near the bottom of the food chain? I mean, are they supposed to trawl around Division III? It is so tough to be at the bottom of the food chain in this environment. I say a little prayer for those guys every time somebody gets poached from the little guys at the end of the portal period.
Yeah. And you got to wonder about, ISU, if you'd have just had a kicker.
Sure. Yeah.
They basically, they had at least two, to be honest, they probably could have won the game twice. So it is crazy that I felt so sorry for Illinois State because they played such a courageous game, came from behind, took control of the game, and then because they couldn't have a kicker at the level of a high schooler, lost the national title.
Let's look at this, though. Those were blocked.
I agree.
Both those were blocked. And Montana State's kick, if you watch those kicks, were terrible. I'm not sure that it was that ISU kicker's fault. It's just the blocking, Look at the special teams coach. So either way, I always want to defend kickers. You know me.
Yeah. It was a tough one. And I felt, like I said, I felt so bad because that team showed such resolute determination as they came back. It was fun and thoroughly entertaining game to watch. So let's talk a little bit about what we have going on in terms of players that are coming in. And I think probably the most important, it's just the way football is at every level. The most important is the quarterback position. Caden Hauser out of East Carolina comes in. Steve, what are your thoughts on this gentleman? Because I was actually pretty excited by what I saw of his film and what he's accomplished on the playing field.
I thought Illinois played that great. I said at the beginning of the portal period, as it became apparent that Illinois was going to reach into the portal for a new starter, that what we needed to find is either a 4-star who hadn't worked out at his first place, or a guy who had experience at a lower level and was ready to come in and step in. And somehow we got both. And we got him at a pretty good price. You think about, again, all these numbers are unofficial. Nobody knows. There's never an accounting when it comes to NIL money. But think about this. We got Caden Hauser for not too much more than Texas A&M paid for David Alano. I don't know anybody that wouldn't take that trade. So, and as a player, I'm pretty impressed by him too. The passing is a little erratic. The arm is strong enough that he'll be able to play in Champaign, but I'm a little bit worried about having another Isaiah Williams 1.0 experience where he throws the ball really, really hard on a line and is not in the right direction. I think he can still be effective because he's also a really, really good runner, and I think he's big and strong enough that he'll always be able to rely on that. I think we're going to see a lot more, design quarterback runs with him. He seems like he's a pretty sturdy guy that's strong enough to be able to take it, and of course effective in that area too. But either way, I thought that was an A+. I thought that worked out great for Illinois.
Yeah, I think ultimately you've got a team here that has to figure out, you look in the comment section, you have to figure out how much money you're going to spend and where you want to spend it. And I think also, and it's kind of hard to explain this, but you kind of let the big money spenders go through and go crazy, and then you grab the best value talent. You've got talent on one side and you got what you can afford on the other, and you try to balance those two things as best you can. So I do think there is, and we've seen it on the basketball side, where Illinois is rarely the highest spender in the transfer portal, but they end up getting players that make a difference, and they don't have to pay top dollar for it. Nobody's paying, $9 million or what have you, for AJ, at BYU, et cetera. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. I think there's some comments that are going on out there. I guess, I've gotten in, a lot of people get mad about talking about Signetti and what he's done. But, the money that Indiana has right now, they've got multiple billionaires that have now personally gotten involved, whether it's Mark Cuban, whether it's the Eli Lilly heirs, whether it's the bank that is throwing dollars around, and they've got that going. And right now, I would say there are many schools that would be hard pressed to keep up with them. Oregon has built that model with Phil Knight over the last 25 years that turned Oregon into one of the worst teams as we grew up. I mean, they were a team that just got the living snot beat out of them every week. Now, all of a sudden, they're one of the Final Four in football. So that model works, but you have to get that billionaire benefactor and get them doing it. Illinois has opportunities. They do have billionaires that they can get. And that is something that you're going to be looking at and saying, okay, that's a track that you'll be recruiting all the time, which is the high dollar volume booster. Mm-hmm. And that's a part of the recruiting game. And what Curt Signetti did that changed it up is he became a head coach more like a Bill Self, who actually would go to boosters and get those, have those relationships as well. And Signetti, look, he got Mark Cuban to invest in the Indiana football program, which I don't believe he had ever done. Good for Signetti. He provides more pressure to other coaches to do it. And if I was Josh Whitman, I would have no problem flying in with Brett Bielema and Brad Underwood and Shauna Green and put those coaches in front of people and say, this is what you're putting your money into. And I'd feel very confident that those three coaches would certainly be the type that could sell a booster as well.
Absolutely. You got to recruit in two directions these days. You got to recruit down, so to speak, and get the players, but you got to recruit up to get the money too.
Right.
And obviously that's a part of modern college sports. Absolutely is. And I guess it wouldn't hurt if you could create a new Eli Lilly box on the field and allow practice access to Eli Lilly as well. I mean, that is part of what's gone so well for Signetti.
Yeah, and that's what, and if people recall, and we actually did a Eye on the Illini with John Makovic, and he hated not necessarily the boosters, but he hated that he had to spend time with the boosters at Texas. And that was the part that he didn't enjoy about the job. And again, these rules aren't changing. It's just the fact that how they can get the money is different. And that's, I think, where Illinois is going to have to figure out what kind of access you're willing to give. I think we're seeing with Gies that you're seeing that he has a lot of access to the football and basketball programs. So maybe you see if Mark Andreessen or Shad Khan wants to do that. The problem is Shad was probably willing to do that a decade or two ago, and he has been an incredible assistant and an incredible help to U of I sports. But now as his EPL team, he's got his Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's not like he has as much free time as he might have had a decade or a decade and a half ago.
Sure.
Let's talk about some other ones. I noticed Ty Robinson guy has all the physical ability that you could want. We have to see if he's going to be healthy. Now, Illinois has done quite well by getting some guys who had injury issues in the portal and having them have good seasons with Illinois. Is that what this is in your mind?
Well, with him, certainly. Obviously, I mean, you can look at his stat line and realize, 22 catches total so far at the Division I level. That's not gonna open any eyes. But I did notice that he was voted preseason All Conference, having barely played. He transferred in from Colorado originally, which means obviously somebody thought he was a high major early on, and then in one of the many Dion purges, he had to go back down, and now he's getting his chance to come back up to the P4 level. But I mean, you'd be foolish to count on him for any sort of a role, given that he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and you really don't even know if he can produce at this level. But at the same time, I mean, I love taking a flyer on a guy like that, especially in the era of the 110 plus scholarships. You can take flyers on 20, 30 guys. This is not like in the 85 scholarship era where you pretty much have to have 50 stalwarts, and then you can maybe develop another 20, and you got maybe 15 questions on top of that, maybe some walk-ons too. I like the strategy. We still need to fill in some of the meat, if you know what I mean. On the defensive line, we still probably need a more reliable receiver. I like the guy they got from Florida. Obviously, he has got a lot of speed. Again, a little bit of a question mark. Hasn't really played high major opponents and hasn't done well against certain opponents. It seemed like he was very, very feast or famine in his games. I'm blanking all of a sudden. Florida Atlantic.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Jay Sean Pratt. Yep.
Yeah. Very feast or famine so far. So again, I like taking the flyers. We're going to need a few more reliable guys too, based on the numbers that we've heard get thrown around that they have to spend. I feel like we're going to get there. I'm sure I'm as nervous as all the other Illini fans out there, watching guys leave and not knowing whether some of these guys who've portaled are actually going to come back, and then trying to figure out who we're going to have and who we're going to replace the guys, how we're going to replace the guys who left.
Yeah, and Ty Robinson has all the measurables that you could ask for. I mean, he's got it all, but he has had injury issues. And I think he's got to have a year where he's healthy. I go back to the Florida State lineman that Illinois had a couple years back. Had a heck of a season, and didn't get injured. And really, if he hadn't been around, probably would have been a little bit different year for the Illini. And when he came in, again, it was considered a high risk, high reward signing, not because they gave him so much money, but because people were just like, he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and Illinois was able to get a full season out of him, and things went well.
Yep. No, that was huge. I'm looking up his name right now. It's terrible. Yeah. I've forgotten it, but my gosh, he was so important to that team because our defensive line was at a 5-alarm fire that year, and Dennis Briggs really saved us. We didn't have hardly anybody that was reliable or capable on the line, and then he comes in, takes a ton of snaps, and gets through the season okay. But this is a guy who was 4 or 5-star talent and just could never put it together. So Ty Robinson obviously was never 4 or 5-star talent, but he's a high level talent. Certainly, he's a guy who could be a reliable player or even a difference maker. I really thought Justin Bowick showed enough last year to get more chances, and I noticed that he's still in the portal. And of course, Brett Bielema has told us flat out that a lot of these guys he has given his blessing to get in the portal, see if they can kind of get an offer that's better than Illinois'. Hoping he's one of the ones that comes back. Tomiwa Durojaye is another guy that I really hope comes back. And regardless, we're going to need some more meat on the defensive line. At this moment, we only have 9 guys, and several of them are not ready. And that includes the 3 true freshmen.
Yeah. And like I said, Angelo McCollum, some guys played really well, showed well, and you want to give them, some more support in there. I do think we're seeing with Miami how important it is to have as many guys as you can stockpile in that defensive line, as they went out and just beat the snot out of Ohio State's offensive line. And as much as Ryan Day, I'm not a huge Ryan Day fan, as everybody knows, but blueprint on how to beat Ohio State is have pretty good defensive linemen and offensive linemen who are interested in throwing a punch in the first few minutes to see if Ohio State will punch back. And they're good enough that they can do that, and Ohio State doesn't seem to. So from that standpoint, it's something that we're looking for in terms of if Illinois can find a way to get those defensive linemen. And of course, they did end up with Carter Janke and defensive lineman out of Penn. And I'll save you a little bit here. There's not a lot of information on him, but I do think he's unique from the standpoint of there's not a lot of defensive linemen who you can look at their high school film as a quarterback.
Yeah.
So there's some athleticism there, and there's also probably some football IQ. And he is noted for being 6'4", 290, so he's got a big body, and he is noted as being a guy who hustles and plays hard each down, which is that is a cornerstone of Brett Bielema defense.
So I was actually watching his film earlier. You're giving him too much credit as far as being knowledgeable. His quarterback highlights are simply roll out, run over all the smaller guys in front of him. He barely threw. It's really just it. And it would be mistaking it to even say that he was an option quarterback. It's quarterback sweep right, quarterback sweep left, quarterback draw up the middle, quarterback lead up the middle. It is just he is the biggest, strongest guy on the field, and he's playing in a small school league in Connecticut. So it's you really don't get a whole lot out of that. Penn was his only Division I offer, and he took it, and he's grown a lot physically. There's not much film, like you said, but obviously, the reputation is going to have to hold out. And I trust the staff. Like when they target somebody, they've generally come through pretty well. So he was obviously one of the early targets, along with Williams, the safety from East Texas A&M. So obviously those two are priorities, and I trust that they probably are going to be at least starting quality players. But who really knows who's going to be able to hold up when you're talking about jumping essentially 2 levels from the Ivy League to the Big Ten and from the Southland Conference to the Big Ten.
Yeah. And I do think the other thing that people have to understand is Brett Bielema is very active with other football coaches. He is a guy who is really, really will help other coaches, loves to engage. And I think he probably gets an awful lot of tips from other coaches about, hey, this guy can do that. You need to look at this guy. And I think that does make a difference. There's some guys who don't matriculate and try to do that. And then there's guys like Bielema who knows everybody everywhere. And those moments that he spent, helping somebody out, maybe when he didn't have to, kind of pay it off on these days when some coach is trying to go, hey, you know what, that kid's good. I know what it takes. And they, they have access to Brett Bielema. Maybe Brett looks at somebody and has an opportunity to pay attention to a guy that many people wouldn't have seen.
Oh, I guarantee Janke and Williams, were on our radar back in September, and that as the season went on, the Illinois staff was probably monitoring them closely. And that's why as soon as the portal opened, we had them here for visits and we had them signed up. We probably already had everything, already had the numbers negotiated, and just wanted to give them a look and see if they were shorter than we thought or slower than we thought or whatever.
Yeah.
I wonder, way that they were on the campus immediately and signed immediately tells me that those two were under our, we're under our close watch all season long.
Okay. And I also wonder why it takes, you've got, I guess, ultimately, you had you're cut. It certainly appears like you're probably going to have less guys on scholarship because that gives you a little more dollars to spend, or at least you're spending less money maybe on the people down at the bottom of the roster. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're a player, you're probably looking at it and saying, well, I didn't make it into the 2 deep, or I'm behind these 2 guys. And sometimes a player just looks and says, that guy's better than I am. so you go out and see if you can make more money somewhere else, get more minutes somewhere else, get both. Illinois was expected. They thought they were going to, have a bunch of guys go into the portal. I wonder though if you really, I do a lot of interviews with other insiders around the country, and the family component that Brett Bielema talks about with Illini football is not something that you see everywhere else. And I do wonder if there's going to be some players who go out there and like, hey, this isn't exactly what I thought I was. I thought everybody else was like this. So I think there may be some people who go into the portal and say, okay, maybe based on what I've got, maybe I should stay at Illinois versus going somewhere else and seeing if I can, if these coaches are telling me the same thing. And coaches are in the same boat. They're like, is this kid as good as he says he is, as I think he is? And players are under the same thing. Will this coach really care about me? Does he care about me for more than just being on the field?
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I've heard the same thing, that all the things that used to matter before it was about the paycheck really, really counted Illinois. It's a good education. We all know that. We allow players to go get a real degree, and not every school does. I guarantee you, if you go to LSU and go like, yeah, I need to be pre-med, coach, so I'm going to have to rearrange my practice schedule, he'd be like, I think you need to get out of here, son. Like it just wouldn't happen. Whereas we do have some engineering majors on our roster, and they're allowed to actually, pursue real careers and stuff like that. So it's fun to see. It's nice to be able to support a program like that. I am nervous about how this portal season is going to work out, though. So I'm just kind of crossing my fingers and hoping that Bielema's hints that he has a couple other guys in the fold will pan out soon, just for my heart's sake. I hope they'll come out soon.
Yeah. What did you think of Jay Renfro coming out of Wisconsin?
Oh, so, okay. Another injury problem, but I've mentioned this so many times. Experience is so important. Experience and maturity are so important in college football. So when you've got a guy who's already been a lineman in the Big Ten and a good lineman in the Big Ten, and you've got a guy who's played center, which is the position where experience means the most. Oh my gosh, I loved that addition. I mean, that's to me, that's right up there with any quarterback you could get. When you get a center, a 7th-year center, and we probably shouldn't try to do the math to try to figure out whether, how that 7 years works. And I know there's some injuries in there too. Let's just not put that math in there. I've been telling people this for the last couple of years. Try to forget that 85 was ever a number. It doesn't exist anymore. Try to forget that 4 used to be the number. It doesn't exist anymore. When the guy says he's coming back, and that's that. And then even when you see Illinois' roster and it says so-and-so is a senior, that doesn't mean that he's not coming back too. So I don't know. But back to Jay Renfro, really quality player. He's actually a better athlete than you'd think too. He is ideal size for a center, and then he's 6'4" and 310, and he can really get out and move and pull. He handles pass blocking really well too. He's an A+ type of guy. His grades were a little bit low last year. I'm not quite sure why. I've watched some film of him. I haven't seen enough to see where the weaknesses came. I know that health has been a problem, and I know that sometimes guys won't show out as much against, say, like an elite bull rusher from Michigan or Ohio State when they're not quite feeling their best and the knees achy and the ankles achy and whatever else. But I am very, very enthused by that. So okay. That is a big one for me.
And Christian Martin, is he more of a depth piece from Colorado State?
You know what? He is a real conundrum for me in that he was a left tackle. He's a good athlete, and he has good size, but he also got overpowered a lot. And I keep seeing him projected at right tackle, but if the guy got overpowered at left tackle, he's going to get overpowered at right tackle. And I saw somebody else projecting him as a guard, saying that was his best position because that's where he played previously. But if you get overpowered at left tackle, you're going to get overpowered at guard. So let me just say this. He's a potential starter. He has ability. He's a good athlete. He has prototypical size for a left tackle. But I would put a lot of money on the Knappix being our left tackles for the foreseeable future and him never playing there. I think maybe once he gets in our strength and conditioning program, you might see a different player, and you might see a very solid right tackle. I will remind everybody that Mel Priestley was a skinny-legged mess as a left tackle, who was a good athlete with a really, really tough attitude. And then 4 months later, he was a beast of a right tackle who brought the attitude with him and was able to put it to good use as far as dominating defensive. I wouldn't say dominating. He was a good player, but as far as being a very effective right tackle. So I'm looking for Christian Martin to be a potential starter. I don't think anybody should be penciling him into the starting lineup right now.
Yeah, but I do think with Tank Wright, we had the opportunity I've interviewed him for Eye on the Illini, had the opportunity to go and tour the Smith Center. And I will tell you that his personality and his drive, he does make the weightlifting fun for these guys on top of hard work. And I do think, having somebody with that type of background, I think is an advantage for the Illini. And so it would be good to see Mr. Martin, get tank righted and end up, 15 pounds heavier. And we'll see how that goes. Cause again, if you've watched these guys work out under Tank, you're not staying the same. You're going to get better.
Yep.
There's no doubt there.
Yeah, and it's not about the number on the scale either with him too. He needs Christian Martin, and this is true of all of our players at times when they've come in. Christian Martin needs strength. He doesn't necessarily need fat. He doesn't necessarily need ballast, I like to say, as far as getting blown over. He needs more strength at this point. And I believe Tank Wright's an excellent coach in all of those areas. If a guy needs to actually just put some more weight in his pants, Tank Wright can get that done. If the guy needs to improve his upper body, if the guy needs to improve his punch, if the guy needs to be able to improve his set, then Tank Wright's a good guy for that too. He really is. He's definitely a grade A type of strength and conditioning coach. High marks all around.
Now, Desmond Schuster, I think Brett Bielema still seems to be enthused about him. So you remember, of course, the old days of Wisconsin football was your red shirt your freshman year. Then your second year, you watch a lot of stuff, and then maybe the third year you play. But a lot of time you were a fourth year junior and a fifth year senior, and so you had 2 years of starting. The way they ran that under Barry and then under Brett.
Yeah. So yeah, Des Schuster. You kind of expected. I know that he was in the mix, like for the starting lineup, right when he came in here as a JUCO. He got hurt, so hopefully he's there. I still think, the Nathan Knappich, was so strong in the bowl game. I don't think there's a way he's not playing next year, and that means his brother Aiden has to play. His brother Aiden is probably a better right tackle. I would look for those guys to be the bookends. I would look for Renfro to be the center, and I would look for Brandon Henderson return to right guard and probably Brandon Hansen at left guard. That's a pretty darn good offensive line. And then you got some really strong second teamers behind there too. I know that they still love that absolute house of a man, Zafir Stewart.
Yeah.
He's still going to be involved at right tackle. Martin can be involved at left tackle, really right tackle too, because we know that Aiden Knappich is going to be the other left tackle if Nathan Knappich isn't.
Okay.
So, and then, there's nothing wrong with Brandon Hansen at guard, and Brandon Henderson is awfully strong too. So, we're looking pretty darn good at offensive line. I hope that they have somebody besides blocking dummies to practice against on the defensive line right now, because like I said, there's just not enough. There's not enough quantity or quality right now.
Right. And it's still early. That's the part that I think people just have to be patient on, because again, if you expected Illinois to go out and try to pick the litter of the top 5 or 10 at any position, probably not going to see that. Although depending on what ranking you looked at, Caton Hauser would come into like maybe 9th in the quarterbacks. So I'm not certain, again, Illinois is not going to spend in that top level. And as a businessman, I tend to, even poo-poo. I get Brad and Ked mad at me when I say Illinois basketball is probably a top 15 spender, not a top 10. And people get all verklipped on me. And I'm like, It's just what I see. And Illinois football is not going to be a top 20 spender right now. As they get over time, you're hoping that they get the backing. And look, Brett Bielema's done his job. You put up 10 wins, 2 years ago, 9 wins this last year. He's got to get that to get the boosters on board. He's doing his job. Now they've got to spend wisely because, again, college football is a sport that you don't have a salary cap. So if Ohio State misses on a left tackle, well, they just pay another $2 million and get another left tackle. No big deal. Illinois does not have that luxury, and most teams don't. Have Buckeye money. They don't have LSU money, et cetera. So they have to be smart on it. And that's where I think you want a coach who's good at two things. One is picking out talent, and then the second part is developing talent. And where it really clicks is when you have a guy who can do both those things, and he has a really deep budget. That's called Kurt Signetti.
We have a GM of the football program now, and we have a GM of the basketball program, and those guys do a lot of heavy lifting. Those are the guys who are setting all this stuff up through the season. And then just one thing, as far as spending all the money, I hope Illinois fans who maybe are looking at their neighbors and their championship flags realize how rare it is this day and age to have a team that is a top 25 level football program and a top 15, 10 level basketball program. Most schools are choosing one or the other, and a lot of schools are choosing neither. So, and that's including in the Big Ten. So I hope everybody appreciates that it's how fun and rare it is to be able to root for legitimate teams in both major revenue sports. And, I'll point out that baseball is a revenue sport in a lot of other conferences, but that's not really true in the Big Ten. So.
Yeah. So the quarterback of the future question is a good one. And if I were going to speculate, I would speculate that you would have a opportunity here for obviously 1 year with Caton taking over. And then Carson Boyd has performed very well in practice. We haven't seen him in a game, so it's hard, but we hear wonderful things about him. Clayton looks like he's going to have all the tools to compete, although I'm not certain as a freshman, Big Ten. But again, you just have to kind of see how things go. But he can certainly throw. And Lopati is definitely got talent as well and a big-time body. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people making a run at him. And to keep him in the fold will be an interesting challenge for Coach B. Not saying he can't, but there's going to be a lot of people trying to drop cash as well there.
So my prediction on that is, obviously we know who our quarterback is this year, is Hauser. But I really, really don't see Illinois going into the season with Carson Boyd as the primary backup and only a true freshman behind him, even though I really, really like Michael Clayton too. So I think the logical thing is we reach into FCS, we reach into Division II or whatever. We get somebody who's experienced and maybe has 2 years left of eligibility. And that person is our primary backup this year, John Paddock style, and competes with Carson Boyd. I mean, you're not going to hand anybody the job of the backup, at least this year. So that person competes for the backup job this year, and then Hauser goes off, hopefully the NFL next year, and then we have an actual open competition. The new whoever it is else they're going to bring in, Boyd, Clayton, and then Lopati. Again, you're not going to play a true freshman, especially somebody from Utah, given that there's really not much quality football in Utah at this point. So he wouldn't have seen the types of coverages, he will not have experienced the types of pass rushes that he would need to be ready to play against an Ohio State. So that's my prediction at this point. So quarterback of the future, Michael Clayton's great. He's a definite 4-star level recruit. Even though he lost that 4-star during the year that, after he committed to Illinois. And I think Illinois fans know how that goes. That's happened several times to Illinois recruits. Carson Boyd has done everything that's been asked of him. He passed Trey Petty like Trey Petty was standing still. And then, of course, Trey Petty has gotten in the portal himself. So can't say enough good things about Carson Boyd. Can't say enough good things about Clayton. Having said that, we really got to get an experienced backup this year to just be ready to come in. You don't want to end up having to entrust your season to a guy like Carson Boyd who has not taken a snap yet.
And let's remember one thing: John Paddock's first game, folks, was against Penn State when I think he bounced past his first 4 passes. And I remember being up in the press box, and we were all like, "This guy is all that and a bag of donuts." We were all like, "Wow, that was really a rough first outing." And then later on in the season, he looked like, Mr. Heisman, reincarnated. So it was, you got to, again, it's a journey. Each season is a journey. So
right.
We will find that out. And I've heard there's a boatload of teams going after Lopati. I mean,
yes.
I'm talking like a lot. So
how weird is it that he goes and visits Duke and Tennessee, the 2 teams that Illinois, beat in probably 2 of their biggest wins this year, and those are the 2 that he goes and visits right away? I don't know. All I can say is there's probably a lot of money going on. Maybe he's looking for some, trying to create more leverage against Illinois. I don't know. I'm gonna let all that stuff play out outside my brain space, because I will probably worry myself to death, trying to think about whether we're going to be able to hold on to him.
Yeah, and I will tell you, there is a marketplace out there for guys who are paying, asking for money for a visit. So if you have 5 visits and you can wrangle $25,000 a visit or $5,000 a visit, whatever you can get, that is a way to generate some revenue for a player. I'm not saying it's just the way the rules work nowadays. We didn't talk about long snapper, Steve. Offensive linemen. You guys appreciate the long snapper. Weren't those the guys that didn't even have to do all the lineman drills?
I'll tell you what, I was the 3rd string long snapper at Davidson College. I know a teeny little bit about long snapping, and I can do it. And I know that it's a lot harder on your shoulders than you think. I mean, it's like throwing a fastball again and again and again. And of course, doing it through your legs isn't that fun. You get used to it, but it isn't that fun when especially in the days when you used to get decked after every single play too. So having said that, Zach Haber, it's nice to have a guy with experience, in that position. We all saw in the Ohio State game what happens when you got a guy. I mean, he was a good long snapper. There's really no reason to believe that he was going to fail, but at the same time, you put him into a big game and all of a sudden you got a few flutters, you got a bouncer, and you realize there's only one way to find out whether the guy's ready for prime time. And I won't use this as an opportunity to get on my soapbox about how our second stringers didn't play at all last year, but draw your own conclusions about my opinions on that.
Yeah. That's like me talking about they need to get more billionaires.
Yeah, I know.
You wind that engine up, it doesn't stop very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I think we've went through a little bit about each player. Maurice Smith, do you have any insight into where he might be?
Well, he's not the guy we're looking for as a quarterback. I can tell you that. I would rather have Newton. I would rather have Jershawn Newton as a quarterback, and I don't think Jershawn Newton's a quarterback either. But at the same time, that's a guy I wouldn't mind having as a running back, a short yardage guy. I wouldn't mind having him as an H-back, somebody who could carry the ball if necessary and then go out and run some patterns. I think we all know that was a package deal situation coming in with his brother Maurice. Coming in with his brother Milo. I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. Yeah. Who's the lineman? Okay.
Yeah, I don't even have the roster up right now, but yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we all know that was a package deal. Don't look for him to be your quarterback answer. Don't look for him to be even on the depth chart as a quarterback. They'll probably find some way for him to maybe contribute. I'm sure that they don't intend to just waste that roster spot and not give him a chance. But that, if you look at his videos from Cowan, you're looking at a guy who should stay at Cowan if he wants to play quarterback. He has 1 year of eligibility left. I imagine they'll use it at a different position.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it's always interesting to kind of look at that. And how each of these guys, is looked at and where they may have their opportunities to play. And it is kind of a situation here where, again, you have to be really, really patient, because the bottom line is you really do have to figure out like who you can get. And the weird thing about the portal is, think about and I think this more so in Major League Baseball than any other sport, but there's no salary cap in baseball. So all you need is one idiot owner to come in and screw up a negotiation for you. Well, there's at least 80 schools that have a little bit of money from television contracts. So you only need one guy to overpay for one person that you want before you're into a situation where you're like, well, that dissipated quickly for us. And so it's a little bit of a different situation, when you've got those things going on. So, you have to look at it and kind of say, all right, how are we going to deal with that? And I do think ultimately patience is the other thing, because unfortunately all these kids, when the music stops and they're all running around looking for chairs, there's no guarantee that all these guys are going to get a seat at the table.
Yep.
And that's the sad part.
Micah Champ Smith. That's the name I was searching for, our new offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So yes, that's him. And then one thing I would say to that, Mike, is that the good news is that in college football, there are a heck of a lot more players in the pool as well. So when I don't want to jinx myself, but let's say Camden Lapati gets a $5 million a year offer from Duke to replace Darius Mensah. There will be other quarterbacks out there.
There's always other players.
There will be guys.
There's 3,000 in the pool.
Right.
So that's the point is we want to get, and I'll be honest with you, you may say, oh, I'd love to get a 10 out of 10 player to play defensive tackle. But to be honest with you, I'd almost prefer 5 or 6 sevens to, keep the rotation going and having that solid defensive line that we haven't had since the law firm Randolph and Newton was around.
Yeah. I will remind everybody that we still haven't filled in what, in my opinion, are our 2 biggest holes yet: a stud tight end who can block and a pass rusher at outside linebacker. Supposedly we've got some irons in the fire and we'll be able to work that stuff out. But we still need to fill a couple of key positions for us. We need blockers to be tight ends. That's why Cole Rusk is gone. And despite the impressive, showing in the bowl game from pass rush, we don't have outside linebackers who are ready to play right now. So we need somebody who's a difference maker there.
Yes, totally agree. Any final thoughts as we kind of wrap this up, Steve?
I'll quote Brad and say, let it all play out. People are nervous. I'm nervous. But Bielema has said that he has some commitments that he just kind of hasn't announced yet. We don't actually know that the guys who are in the portal are going to end up leaving. We don't even know if a Kurt Neal, who's already announced that he's going to Purdue, is actually going to Purdue. Stuff is flying around like crazy right now. We got to hope that at the end of the day, our people know what they're doing and we have all of our holes filled. I think we will. In the 110 plus scholarship era, 110 plus roster spot era, we'll have enough depth to be able to put together a good team in the fall. I'm confident of that. And again, thankful as a longtime Illini fan to be able to say that, because there's a whole lot of years you're going like, well, if so-and-so is decent, then maybe we can have a decent year. But I think we'll be in better shape than that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing that's missed. And, we're probably guilty of it doing it too. If you put together a hypothetical 2 deep at Illinois, there's a lot of talent there. And this is not your dad's Illini where your 2 deep is really 0.5 deep. And so there is talent there, and you're looking to bring in people to augment that. And you're also looking to do that within a budget. And there's a lot of moving pieces on this. I think one of the things that I look at is Brett's ability to spot talent and his ability to build relationships and be pretty to be real honest, he's very transparent with people. And I think that's important. It's probably hard to get a kid and the parents to not look at the dollar sign only. And I do understand that. We all like to have money in an economy that's not easy to earn it. But to have somebody that you can trust, that when they're saying something, you don't have to read between the lines and try to figure out what he really means. I think that's something that people may find out they really miss if they've been at Illinois and go somewhere else.
Yep. I that has been the consistent message from guys coming in and even for some of the guys going out. Yep. I agree.
Yep. So, folks, thank you so much for taking a few minutes of your time. Of course, you can go to IlliniGuys.com. It's only 27 cents a day to subscribe. We keep all the news and notes behind the paywall. I guess it'd be easier for us to sometimes, break news when we know about it, but we don't want to steal the thunder of a kid. So we'll try to do something back on our message board so that people know something's going to happen, as opposed to tweeting it out and trying to be first. Because again, there's kids who they only, like now with the transfer portal, they'll only get the chance to do this 6 or 8 times in their life. So we don't want to ruin those times. A bunch of old guys trying to ruin their big day. But take a look at subscribing. Of course, if you can like this and subscribe to us on our IlliniGuys.com YouTube page, that's great. If you're listening, putting in on an audio podcast, giving us a 5-star review there and a good review is also really positive as well. So we will be back. We will be after the game tomorrow night. We will do Illini versus Rutgers. We'll do a full recap after the game. Yes, we will have one eye on the CFP game as well. We aren't insane, but we love our Illini. And thank God for YouTube TV, where they can put the 2 channels next to each other. So we'll be enjoying that as well. But until then, folks, go Illini.